Hey guys. Today, the day that I'm recording this, which is today, is Thanksgiving. So I hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving because you're seeing this the day after Thanksgiving. You're seeing this on Black Friday. I feel led to record it today while it's fresh. I actually went to sleep last night at around 8 p.m. I don't know what this time change is doing, but why did I wake up at 11 p.m. thinking I had slept and it was morning? Yeah, exactly. So I woke up at a little after 11 thinking I slept. It's a new day. It's Thanksgiving. Girl, we were still on Wednesday. Okay. And I just got a text message, Happy Thanksgiving. But yeah, so I literally stayed up and I couldn't sleep. I was just laying there. So I'm like, let me get up and study this dream that the Lord gave me. And the Lord actually gave me this dream yesterday. So Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving. And God has been speaking to me a lot about marriage, prodigals, all the things. And don't get me wrong, I've released words on marriages and prodigals throughout the time of starting this ministry. I started in 2021, but God normally has me cover like such a variety of different topics. I'm not a marriage prophet, so I'm not a person that just focuses on marriage. I just give whatever God is giving me to give. But lately, prodigals, returning of prodigals, restoration has been like the going thing that God has had me speak on. And this is no different. However, God took a different turn with this, and this is going to take some really spiritually mature people to understand this. I will not argue with anybody about this word, about how you feel. Take those feelings to God, because one thing I'm going to do is speak on what God gives me, and I'm not some religious person. God is not religion, He's spirit. So you have to be able to apply His word across the boards because one verse can mean a bunch of different things, and a lot of the times religious people will hone in on one verse for it to mean one thing, not recognizing what they're reading, what the times were during that set of scriptures or that book and so forth. Like they don't look at anything else but one verse and just run with it. That is not what we do over here. So I'm going to give you guys this word, how the Lord spoke it to me. Let me make sure I'm recording. Yes, I'm recording. I'm going to give you guys the word, how the Lord spoke it to me. If you disagree with anything, take that disagreeing over to God, because trust and believe, Christina does not want to hear it. And I say that with all love. I do not. Okay. So let's go ahead and get into this word. Again, I had this dream on 11/27, which was yesterday. Today is Thanksgiving, but you guys will see this word on Black Friday. And for those of you that are going Black Friday shopping, don't be out here going crazy, because see, Christmas is not about gifts and money and filling the tree. It's about celebrating Jesus. And some people consider it a pagan holiday. That's your business. I celebrate Christ on Christmas. Even though his technical birthday is not Christmas, I don't care. I still celebrate him on that day. I do not buy anybody Christmas presents. I used to do that in the past. I don't buy Christmas presents. I don't care to put up a tree. I don't care to decorate. I've done it before. I'm not against decorating or anything. I just don't do it. I'm not doing it this year, I don't think. Yeah. So don't be out here spending crazy money on Black Friday and then you have a Black Saturday because your lights get turned off. That's not what we doing. Be responsible. Okay? Be responsible. If you don't got it, don't be spending it. Period. We are not trying to keep up with the Joneses. We don't even know them like that. They can't even keep up with themselves. But anyway, let's get into this word. I'm really not sure what the Lord is going to have me title this word. I don't know. So I'm just going to jump into it. I just hit myself in the mouth. I have a ton of notes, as you can see. All of these notes are for this dream. And I also type notes on my little notepad. I don't know if you guys could see that screen. Probably not. It's too bright. There you go. I also have notes on my notepad that I typed out too. So we're going to be reading notes from my notepad on my phone and the notes that I wrote. But I've been up since a little bit after 11. I did fall asleep once, and God used that one time to answer a question that I had about this word. So I'm also going to give you guys the vision that the Lord gave me this morning to confirm something from this word. Okay. So I'm going to read the dream out to you. I saw a woman in this dream who was a police officer. She was a woman cop, or she worked at a police station. And she was married, but cheating on her husband with another man. The man she was cheating on him with was a very handsome man. I remember him being very big, not fat, but muscular, tall, and just like attractive. He was very attractive, and he was attractive in a fleshly sense. So he was like one of the men that you look at in this day and age that they're just tall, bearded, muscular, all the things. And you're just like, ooh, like they just carry the sex appeal. So this is what I mean by saying he was attractive in a fleshly way. Not in a way where you see the glory of God over a person and it makes them attractive. His attractiveness came from external only. Okay. So tall, dark, and handsome, muscular. The woman approaches her husband after being with the guy she was cheating on him with, and her husband is walking with another woman. There was a pureness, a wholeness, and a modesty about the woman that he was walking with. Even her husband seemed the same way. I knew in the dream that even though the husband and wife were married, they were separated. The husband began to tell his wife that God brought him and this young lady together, and that she is the one that God wants him to be with. And the young lady was in agreement with him. He began to tell the wife to stop sending him all of these nasty and rude text messages because they are over. The wife responds and says she felt led by God to come over and talk to him. And her husband asked, "What for?" And she had no response. She just stood there like with a blank look on her face. The scene switches, and I was in the house. I was in a house, and the power went out as I was standing inside of this house. It only went out for what seemed like a quick second, and then the lights and power came back on. I then saw the color green in the man's phone, as in the husband's phone in the dream. I saw his phone screen light up as the power was coming back on. On the phone screen, I saw two hearts, one with the husband's name and one with the woman's name that God told him to be with. And the hearts were stuck together and pointing towards the word yes. And the phone was confirming that he heard God right and is supposed to be with this other woman that God told him to be with. I remember having a knowing in the dream that he was telling the truth, and that God did tell him that the woman he is supposed to be with as his wife is the woman that he was with, not his current wife by title. I also remember the husband telling the wife that he would be there for the kids that they have together, but their marriage is done. It's over. He was adamant about standing on what God had confirmed to him. I then saw the time on his cell phone, and it said 7:36. Now, I'm not sure if it was 7:36 a.m. or p.m. I just saw the time on his phone that said 7:36. I woke up and recorded the dream and went back to sleep. And then I woke up at exactly 7:37 a.m. So I woke up a minute after the time that I saw in the dream on this husband's phone. So on the phone, it says 7:36. So when I woke up, recorded the dream, went back to sleep. When I woke up again, it was 7:37 a.m. And the Lord had me take note that it was a minute after what I had saw in the dream. The Lord had me look up 7:37 in the Strong's Hebrew Concordance. And it means Aruka. It's spelled Aruchah. Again, 7:37 in the Hebrew Concordance, which is all biblical, is Aruka. And it means healing or restoration. It refers to the process of making something whole, complete, and restored. It implies the mending of brokenness. The Lord then led me to Isaiah 58:8, NIV version. It says, "Then your light will break forth like the dawn, and your healing," Aruka, that's what the word Aruka means in the Bible, but of course the Bible is translated to English. So, "Then your light will break forth like the dawn, and your healing," Aruka, "will quickly appear." That's NIV version, Isaiah 58:8. This word, or this actual word Aruka, symbolizes God's power to heal and restore in all areas. It reflects complete divineness and peace and completeness as a whole that comes with God's divine intervention. In the Strong's Concordance, in the Greek translation, 737 means arti, A-R-T-I, which means now, at this very moment, immediately, okay, as in quickly. So the word Aruka and the word arti, they're both listed in Isaiah 58:8. Again, "Then your light will break forth like the dawn, and your healing," Aruka, "will quickly," arti, "appear." Okay. And what God began to speak to me about this time of me seeing 736 on the husband's phone in the dream, but waking up at 737, is that many of you are waking up and it's your healing and restoration era for whatever God has promised you. And it's a reuniting or a union of some sort. But not only are you waking up and things have quickly changed, but the other person is also quickly changing and having a wake up, a revelation, opening of eyes. The veil is being released over their eyes so that they can see rightfully as far as what God is leading them to do and what they're supposed to do or who they're supposed to be with to be in the will of God. Okay? Breakdown of the dream. The wife represents a counterfeit. The wife represents a counterfeit covenant of misalignment and control. The word that I heard in the dream when I realized, or when I woke up from the dream as God was giving me this interpretation, is she's policing him. That's what the Lord spoke to my spirit. She's policing him. Okay. The fact that the wife is working in a police station represents her policing her husband in this union, as in controlling, manipulating, and attempting to enforce her own will in the marriage rather than submitting to God's plan. Policing in this context means controlling, monitoring, and trying to enforce worldly authority and laws over someone or something beyond what is healthy, right, and appropriate in God's eyes. Her infidelity represents spiritual unfaithfulness and prioritizing fleshly desires over spiritual truths. The handsome, muscular man that she was cheating on her husband with represents worldly attractions that are appealing outwardly but lack spiritual substance. In this part, God is showing her lack of being fulfilled in her marriage. When we choose marriages and partners, instead of allowing God to lead us in this area, we will never feel fulfilled with that person. I'm going to pause right here really quick because God wanted me to share something with you guys. I have a friend and he's really handsome, tall, dark, handsome. He's a chef. I've known him for a little over a year. He is going to make a great husband to someone. And he absolutely adores me and I adore him. And I remember taking him to God and asking, like, is he going to be a choice for me when it comes to marriage? And God would always give me a dream of him cheating on me. And I would wake up confused because I just didn't discern this about him, that he was a cheater. And I thank God for my discernment. Like, I'm like, God, what does this mean? Because I don't discern that he's a cheater. Like, is there something hidden that I can't see? And God wasn't saying that he's a cheater and would cheat on me or play me. God was telling me, God spoke to me and said, he's not your husband. And if you allow him to marry you and you marry him, because this man would marry me in a heartbeat, that he would be cheating himself and I would be cheating myself by not allowing God to bring what God has for us and choosing to be with one another. We would be cheating ourselves out of the greatness that God has for us. So God, that was God's way of telling me, no, that's not your husband. If you guys get together, you're cheating yourself. You're cheating yourself and settling for something that's never going to feel fulfilled instead of waiting for my choice and my best. He's not your husband. So the Lord wanted me to share that with you guys because in the dream, this wife was cheating. Okay. And God is showing that their union was never meant to be. So she was cheating herself. The husband was cheating himself, even though the husband in the dream wasn't a cheater, but her cheating represented her cheating herself and not going in the direction that God has for her, not being with the person God has for her, but instead she chose to go with the flesh. She chose her flesh over God, which led her into this marriage that she's not fulfilled in. Okay. But also it represents worldly attractions that are appealing to her outwardly, but lack spiritual substance. The husband is a symbol of obedience to God and a husband's obedience and submission to God. The husband's purity, wholeness, and modesty, along with the same traits of the woman he's with, indicates a life aligned with God's will and his values. His confidence in God's confirmation reflects faith and obedience. This dream highlights that he is no longer bound by toxic or misaligned relationships with his wife because God has revealed a higher plan for him. His eyes have been opened. He has awakened from his slumber. His heart is also receptive to God's leading and correction of error. The other woman represents God's chosen path, the chosen wife for this man. The other woman embodies godly qualities, purity, modesty, and wholeness. Her presence in agreement with the husband represents the path and relationship that God has ordained for them, that the both of them are in agreement with. Amos 3:3. Can two walk together except they be agreed? That's the KJV version. Some versions say, how can two walk together unless they agree? They can't. In this dream, the other woman and the husband were in complete agreement with one another because this is something God brought together. And when he brings it together, he will put the hearts in alignment with his will. The hearts on the phone screen confirm divine connection and alignment in the union that God has designed. The hearts represent the soul of the people involved. In Hebrew, the word for heart is leb, L-E-B, which translates to the inner man, as in the heart, mind, will, and emotions, the soul. It symbolizes the seat of one's soul, the very essence of a person's being. When two people enter into a God-ordained union, such as a marriage, it is not just a physical or legal bond, it's a spiritual bond and a soulful unity. You can see this reflected in Genesis 2, verse 24. New King James Version says, therefore a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. The one flesh concept signifies becoming one in mind, spirit, and soul, aligning with God's design for unity. It's not just about physical closeness, but about a deep covenant connection where one, hearts are intertwined, as in inner desires and emotions are aligned with each other. Two, minds are unified. The two people share values, goals, and purpose under God's will. Three, wills are submitted to God, aligning individual purposes with God's ultimate plan. Four, all right, that's it. The wife's response was a warning. The wife's blank expression, and it's going, what I mean by the wife's response was a warning, is, remember in the dream where the husband was telling the wife it's over, and the woman he's with is who God told him to be with. The woman then tried to say God sent her over there to talk to him. And he's like, for what? And she had a blank response on her face. Like, she didn't have an answer, because in the dream, like, she knew God didn't send her over there, right? So the wife's response was a warning. Her blank expression and her inability to respond when asked why she came to talk to her husband signifies her not being able to justify continuing this relationship that God has ended, but trying, stop calling me, but trying to use God as a reason to talk to him. But she knows that it's not God. God didn't send her over there. And not just send her over to talk to him in that moment, but she wasn't sent by God at all. God wasn't in that marriage. It was her own emotions and feelings behind the situation. Her actions, including sending rude messages, reflect clinging to what is already over, which represents how some people resist God's plan, even when the truth is evident and right in front of them. The power outage and restoration of power. Catch that. The power outage and restoration of power. The brief power outage represents a momentary disruption or challenge that led to clarity and revelation, hence the power and the lights returning. When God's power takes over and he unveils things, there is no way that anyone would be able to turn a blind eye to what he has shown them. His power is too great for them to turn away from it. And with the revelations, he also begins to change hearts to desire his will for their lives. He's the only one capable of changing a man's heart. Proverbs 21:1. The king's heart is in the hand of the Lord. Like the rivers of the water, he turns it whenever he wishes. New King James Version. You can't change a person's heart. I can't change a person's heart. When God is ready, he will make the change, and it's easy for him. He does it with swiftness, quickness, and ease. It's not a problem for him. The change of heart has to come from God. The husband's phone lighting up with the confirmation about the hearts symbolizes divine guidance and revelation being brought to the light. The color green that I saw when the power came on represents growth, new beginnings, and life. The color in the dream represents the husband's new season of stepping into God's ordained plan for his life. God confirming and giving him the green light. Remember, I also saw yes on the phone, to go forth in what he has shown him and not to turn back. The husband's stance on co-parenting represents his commitment to being present for his children while standing firm on ending the marriage that God never ordained in the first place. This reflects a balance of responsibility and obedience to God's will. It shows that he values what God has shown him more than emotional pressures. The overall interpretation of this dream. This dream highlights the importance of walking in alignment with God's will, even when it requires letting go of relationships or situations that no longer serve his purpose. The wife represents disobedience and self-will, while the husband symbolizes submission to God's truth. The other woman is a reflection of God's restoration and alignment with his divine plan. Yes, God does hate divorce, but he also hates sin, he hates rebellion, and he hates witchcraft. Scripture tells us that sin is equal to rebellion and that rebellion is witchcraft. So anything that we choose to do outside of the will of God, we are rebelling against God's plans for our lives. Who God brings together, let no man separate, not who we bring together. For those of you that are going to say, God hates divorce, shh, close your mouth. It's okay. Just mature in this walk. We have to value God's word that he speaks directly over us and to us instead of societal standards in the church and in the world when it comes to marriage and divorce. For rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft, and stubbornness is as iniquity and idolatry. Because you have rejected the word of the Lord, he also has rejected you from being king. That's New King James Version. And that's when Samuel was giving a word to Saul and the Lord was taking his kingship from him. But this verse also applies to us. This verse highlights that rebellion against God, choosing self-will over his divine plan, results in consequences that align with his greater purpose. When someone rejects God's will, it leads to a shift in positions. Hence, even in this dream, there was a shift in positions and title. God was making things align with his plan. Or the closing of doors, as God orchestrates events to bring about his ultimate plan and ensure his will is fulfilled. I'm going to read that one more time. This verse highlights that rebellion against God, as in choosing self-will over his divine plan, results in consequences that align with his greater purpose. When someone rejects God's will, it often leads to a shift in positions or the closing of doors, as God orchestrates events to bring about his ultimate plan and ensure his will is fulfilled. Yes, we do have what am I trying to say? Free will. Free will does not override God's plans that are already written and established. Acts 5, verse 29. But Peter and the other apostles answered and said, we ought to obey God rather than men. New King James Version. To be a disciple of Christ, you have to have an unwavering commitment to God's authority. A disciple is a follower of Christ. That's us. We follow his commands. We follow his leads. We follow Christ. We're disciples of Christ. To be a disciple of Christ, you have to have an unwavering commitment to God's authority, even when faced with opposition from human authorities, just as the disciples did in this verse. This verse reminds us that God's voice, his guidance, and his will should always take precedence over human opinions or pressures. Doesn't matter if it's the pastor, spiritual mama, spiritual father, whoever, family members, God's voice, his will, his way comes first. It doesn't matter who's giving their 2 cents. It should always be God's voice over man. I'm pretty sure all of that made sense for who it's for. After I finished writing my notes here and in my phone, on my little notebook tablet, I went back to sleep in the wee hours of this morning. And as I was drifting off to sleep, I'm like, God, when it comes to the number 737, I'm like, I know what you gave me in the Strong's Hebrew and Greek's concordance, and me waking up after 736 that I saw in the dream. I woke up at 737, but the Lord didn't have me hone in on 736. He just had me hone in on the time that I woke up, which was a minute after. And again, what he was speaking to me is that this restoration, this healing is quickly appearing. Like, whoever this word is for, you're about to wake up and things are going to be completely different than what you remember. You went to sleep and you were still divorced or separated or whatever this case may be, however this word relates to you. But when you wake up, you're past all of that. And just with that quickness, the season has changed for you, because what God is doing that you don't see is opening up the eyes of the person, whoever this person is, your prodigal child, prodigal husband, prodigal wife. He's opening up the eyes and doing an unveiling for this person to see where they're supposed to be, who they're supposed to be with, where home is, what covenants they've made that are out of alignment with God. God is really doing an unveiling. So by me waking up a minute after what I saw in this dream, which is so strategic of God, God was just showing how quickly the season, the time is going to change from what you remember. It's like when someone goes to sleep in there, they're single, but then they wake up, and within that 24-hour period, you've met the person God has for you, and all these things that may seem unrealistic to people that look at things in the natural. But when you've walked with God for a long time, you know that overnight your life can change. You can go to sleep broke and wake up and that account is on overflow. You can go to sleep feeling broken and wake up and you have a joy that surpasses all understanding, a peace that surpasses all understanding. God is the God of quickly, suddenly, swiftly. One moment, and it may not be as if it really came quickly, because a lot of you have been waiting for years if this word is for you. But God is saying you're going to go to sleep one way and wake up another way. The other person is going to sleep one way, but they're waking up a different way. Like what you remember is not the same. God has been working on the back end this whole time, even though you haven't seen it, because a lot of you haven't even been in contact with these people or this person. But God has been working. He has been changing hearts, changing minds, changing ways, putting his ways in them. And he had me release a word on that yesterday, or yeah, yesterday. Go back and watch it. He's putting his ways in them. So they are going to look at you differently. They're going to look at you rightfully, the way that they should have looked at you before, but they couldn't see. They had eyes that couldn't see, ears that couldn't hear spiritually, eyes that couldn't see spiritually. But now that is changed. They no longer have a heart of stone, but a heart of flesh that's receptive to God's leading. They no longer have eyes that don't see. They now see spiritually. They hear spiritually, and God is leading this. A man may plan his ways, but God orders his steps. When he orders your steps, it's a command. You can't tell him no. He's God. When he changes the heart, you're going to fall in line with whatever he say. If he say jump, you ain't even going to say how high, baby. You just going to start jumping. It's jumping time. So when I finished studying this dream this morning and writing everything down, I went back to sleep. And like I said, I was talking to God as I'm drifting off to sleep, like in my mind. And I'm just saying, God, did I get the times right? The 7:36 and 7:37, like how you're explaining it to me. Am I picking up right? Like, did I write it down right? And I'm just asking him, like, that part, is it right? And he gave me a vision. And it was such a powerful vision. And in the vision, I was walking into a church and there was a funeral being held for a man. And if you've ever been to a funeral, sometimes as they're getting ready to start the service, the casket is still open. So the doors are up on the casket. At least one of the doors are up. So the door that's closer to the foot will be down, but then the door that's over the person's face will be up or whatever. So I walk into this church in this vision, and there's a funeral being held for a young man. Not a young man, but like my age. So a grown man, but a young man, because I'm young, not old. So I walk up to the casket and I start writing a word from God on the casket door. And as I'm writing the word from God on the door of the casket, the man raises up and he comes to life. I'm not even going to explain that, because if you are spiritually mature and this word is for you, you know exactly what God was saying. As I'm writing the word, and I don't know what I was writing on the casket, I just know I was writing a word from God on the casket. It could have been a Bible verse. It could have been God speaking to me. I just know it was a word from God, and I just began to write it on the casket door. And as I'm writing it on the casket door, that man raised up from his sleep. You know, in scripture where God was like, she's not dead, she's just sleeping. And everyone started laughing and mocking him and so forth. He had to kick them out so he can do his thing. That man raised up in the vision from his sleep. He wasn't dead. The dead things are rising. And I'm not going to even explain that vision. Like I said, if this word is for you, you've caught every piece of this word that is being released. There is a severing of marriages that were never ordained by God. And some of you need to go and read Ezra 9 and Ezra 10 and allow God to speak to you through that. And I think it's Ezra 9 and Ezra 10. Hold on. Oh, my Bible's already on Ezra on my phone. Okay. Ezra 9. Yep, go read Ezra 9 and Ezra 10, the whole chapter 9, the whole chapter 10, and let the Lord speak to you throughout those two chapters in the book of Ezra. But God is severing marriages that he never ordained. Like I said, like God's word says, yes, he hates divorce, but he hates sin and he hates rebellion and he hates witchcraft. When you decide to walk outside of the will of God, when a person decides to walk outside of the will of God and marry whomever they choose to and do the most, that is a sin. They're rebelling against God, and that rebellion is like witchcraft. God hates sin, rebellion, and witchcraft. So yes, he hates divorce, but he also hates when people choose to rebel against his commands and do their own thing. Who God brings together, let no man separate. He says, who I bring together, let no man separate, not who we bring together. And when you go and read Ezra 9 and Ezra 10, you'll see how God had all those men divorce their foreign wives that God never told them to marry. And not only did they divorce the wives, they left the wives and the children behind. God's word is his word. His plans are his plans. Free will cannot abort any plans that God has already set in place. That's not how it works. We don't have the power to fight against God when it comes to his plans. He's God. All he has to do is blow on us and we gonna move out his way. So there is a severing of unions, of covenants, of agreements, of vows made, not just in marriages. This could be prodigal children as well, but there's a severing of those covenants, agreements, vows that were made that God was not in. These were counterfeit mantles. Mantles are assignments, counterfeit covenants that people have been carrying, and they're heavy. God never put that heavy burden on them. But that's what happens when we come into agreement with something that God's not in. And he'll allow it to play out because he uses it all for his will, his plan, but it all works for our good. So I don't know who this word is for, but things are shifting. Dead things are rising. Covenants that were never meant to be are being severed, and God is doing a new thing. So I've never really had a word like this. I've had words like this, but it's never been this in depth to where I could see all this play out in the dream. And then God is so good because I'm like, did I get the times right? Like I'm waking up and quickness and things are changing, blah, blah, blah. And he gave me that vision and that was a wrap. I knew I had heard him. I said, okay, God, that was a powerful vision. So that's it for this word, guys. That's it. That's all. I hope you guys enjoyed your Thanksgiving because you're going to see this after Thanksgiving. I'm not doing anything today, really. I'm just going over one of my best friend's house. Her name is also Christina. She invited me. And I only eat seafood and vegan stuff, like no dairy and stuff. So she only eats seafood too. Her family's from New Orleans. So her mom is going to be there and they're cooking a lot of stuff with just seafood. And so I could actually eat a little bit over there. But I'm going to go hang with her today. It's only 10 a.m. So I'm not going to leave here until a little bit later, but that's all I'm doing today and just enjoying the Thanksgiving. When I woke up in the wee hours of this morning, 11 p.m., but I was up until the wee hours of this morning. I was just thanking God for my apartment, for my health, for my eyesight, for being able to hear, for my finances, for everything. I was thanking God for everything because this is the day to be thankful. We should be thankful every day, but this day just reinforces to be thankful for the things all around you, even if you're not where you're supposed to be. So, yeah. I love you guys. Have a great day. Bye.